Why do men chase the sweetness of being liked, as though affection could shield them from betrayal? Look closely, and you will see that the hunger to be loved is the most dangerous weakness of all, for it places your survival in the trembling hands of others. Crowds adore only while it serves their pleasure, and their favor is as fleeting as smoke in the wind. But there exists a harsher, colder truth, one that secures obedience long after affection has died. If you would grasp real power, you must ask yourself, do you wish to be admired, or do you wish to endure? Affection is a delicate thing, and yet so many men chase it as though it were the foundation of power. They long to be liked, to be adored, to be seen as pleasant in the eyes of others. But I tell you, this hunger weakens them. For when you strive to be liked, you are no longer master of yourself. You become dependent on the shifting winds of other people's emotions. Their smiles and approval become the measure of your worth, and in that, you surrender your strength. What is affection but a fleeting favor? One day, the crowd cheers, the next, it spits upon you. One moment, your companions embrace you, the next, they betray you for their own gain. If your authority rests upon their liking, then you are bound to them with chains that they can break whenever they please. That is not power. That is slavery, dressed in the disguise of love. Consider how easily people's moods turn. They love not out of loyalty, but because they find pleasure in you, or because it costs them nothing. They are drawn to what is easy, what is comfortable, what flatters their vanity. But when the hour arrives that your interests no longer serve theirs, their affection evaporates like morning dew under the sun. In such a moment, the man who has built his strength on being liked stands naked, abandoned by the very ones he thought would defend him. This is the cost of affection. It binds you not to the will of men, but to their fickleness. A wise man sees through this game and does not place his destiny in the hands of admiration. Instead, he seeks something firmer, something that does not collapse with shifting moods, respect. To be respected is to command others not because they find you agreeable, but because they recognize your strength, your discipline, your resolve. Respect does not require constant appeasement nor endless displays of charm. It endures even when affection has died. Those who demand to be liked spend their lives in endless concession, cutting away their own authority piece by piece, until nothing remains but a hollow figure, admired but powerless. They become entertainers, not leaders, servants, not masters. In this way, the desire to be liked corrodes the very core of power, for it transfers control to those who must be pleased. You can never rule those whose approval you depend upon. And so I tell you this, affection breeds dependency, and dependency is weakness. The man who wishes to be truly strong must learn to sever his hunger for being liked. He must anchor himself not in smiles, but in the quiet, enduring weight of respect. For only respect can shield him when affection vanishes, as it always will. The one who seeks to be liked is already weak. Loyalty is not born from affection, though many knave men believe it is. They think that if they make themselves pleasant, if they please others, if they dress their commands in sweetness, they will win hearts and bind people to them. But hearts are traitors, ruled not by duty, but by desire. A man may like you today, even praise you, yet tomorrow he will abandon you the moment it serves him. Affection carries no weight when tested against necessity. A bond rooted in liking is as fragile as a rope of sand, snapping at the first pull of hardship. Respect, however, is of a different order. It is not light, nor is it freely given. Respect is born from the recognition of strength, from the knowledge that your will is firm, that your words are not empty, and that your presence carries consequence. When men respect you, they obey not because they are entertained or flattered, but because they sense that to disobey you is to incur loss. Respect ties loyalty not to emotion but to necessity, and necessity binds more tightly than love ever could. Understand that those who merely like you will always weigh their own advantage before they decide to stand with you. If their interest shifts, so too will their allegiance. They are with you only so long as you serve them. But those who respect you hesitate before betrayal, for they know there is a cost to abandoning you. Respect instills caution where affection breeds carelessness. Respect endures when liking has long since withered. A ruler, a leader, a man of power must ask himself, do I wish to be adored, or do I wish to be obeyed? For these are not the same. To be adored is to live at the mercy of others' whims. To be obeyed is to command in all seasons, whether men smile at you or frown. Respect ensures this obedience, for it anchors your authority not in mood, but in fear of consequence and acknowledgement of your strength. This is why a wise man does not chase the laughter of the crowd. He knows that laughter fades, and those who laugh today may mock tomorrow. He seeks instead to build the kind of presence that compels men to hold their tongues, to measure their words, to walk carefully in his shadow. This is respect, and in respect there is security. Remember, it is not the man who is liked who holds his followers steady in times of trial, but the man who is respected, for respect commands loyalty, while liking only commands convenience. Popularity deceives more men than open enemies ever could. It shines like gold from a distance, and fools mistake it for true wealth. They chase the cheers of the crowd, intoxicated by the sound of applause, believing that in it lies security. But the crowd does not love the man. They love the spectacle he provides. And when the performance no longer pleases, the same voices that once praised will turn sharp with scorn. Popularity is nothing but a mirage bright to the eye, yet vanishing the moment one attempts to grasp it. The danger lies in its seduction. To be popular, one must bend, flatter, and yield. A leader who hunts for popularity lowers himself to the level of the people, shaping his will to their desires rather than shaping theirs to his. He trades authority for approval, and in doing so, he lays down his crown at the feet of the very ones he seeks to rule. Such a man does not govern. He is governed by the shifting tides of opinion. Those who understand power know that popularity cannot be trusted. The multitude is fickle, unstable, quick to embrace and quicker to discard. Today they may call you savior, tomorrow they may call you tyrant. To rely upon them is to anchor yourself to a storm. Even when they cheer, their loyalty is not yours, it belongs to their own interest. When fortune turns, they will abandon you without hesitation, for their applause was never about you. It was about themselves. True power is never found in the craving for applause. It is found in the silent recognition that even those who do not cheer must still obey. A man who commands respect does not require the crowd's constant affirmation. His authority stands whether they celebrate him or curse his name. For respect is not a passing mood, but a structure built on strength, consistency, and consequence. Popularity demands constant feeding, an endless supply of concessions to please the multitude. Respect requires only that you remain firm, just, and unyielding in your principles, which, then, is the stronger foundation, which endures when the winds of public favor turn cold. Popularity will abandon you at the first sign of difficulty, But respect will hold even in silence, for men may stop liking you, but they cannot deny your strength. Remember this truth: to anchor your authority in popularity is to build upon sand. It looks solid until the storm comes, and then it collapses in ruin. But to build upon respect is to set your power in stone, immovable even as the waves crash against it. And that is why the wise man scorns the glitter of being liked, and instead demands the weight of being respected. Men often deceive themselves into thinking that love will guard their power. They imagine that if they are kind, generous, and endlessly forgiving, those around them will repay them with loyalty. But love without boundaries is a trap. It lulls a man into weakness, and it tempts others into boldness. For when people feel only affection for their leader, they test how far his leniency stretches, how much they can take before he resists. Love exposes him, making his power fragile, for it invites others to presume upon his softness. Fear, by contrast, steals obedience. It does not rely on passing moods, but on the certainty of consequence. A man who is respected with a measure of fear does not need to wonder whether his command will be followed. He knows it will. Fear removes hesitation. For men who are afraid to offend you will not risk betrayal. They may not love you, but their obedience is secure. This is the foundation of strength, not affection freely given, but boundaries no one dares to cross. To be loved is pleasant, yes, but it is never reliable. People love as long as it serves their comfort. Once love costs them something. Loyalty, sacrifice, danger. They abandon it without remorse. But respect born of fear holds firm, for men dread the price of disobedience more than they value the sweetness of betrayal. Love asks, fear compels, and in the harsh contests of survival, compulsion always outlasts request. Do not mistake fear for cruelty. The wise man does not need to be savage, only unyielding. Fear is not born from endless punishment, but from the certainty that punishment will come if defiance is shown. It is the knowledge that your word carries weight, that your tolerance has limits, and that those who test them will regret it. That is the kind of fear that creates respect, the kind that guards power, even when affection has soared. The man who clings to love alone lives at the mercy of others, for he has given them permission to ignore him whenever they no longer feel affection. But the man who ensures that respect is entwined with fear is never left unprotected. Even those who despise him must still think twice before moving against him. In this way, fear shields him where love exposes him, and respect endures where affection collapses. It is safer, always, to be respected with fear than to be loved without it. The desire to be liked reveals more than a gentle nature. It exposes a weakness at the very core of a man. For to crave the affection of others is to confess a hunger that cannot be satisfied from within. It is an admission that one's strength is not self-sustained, but dependent upon the smiles and approval of the crowd. And what happens when a man shows such hunger? His enemies smell blood. His rivals sense an opening. His allies begin to test the limits of his need, for weakness, once revealed, invites exploitation. A man who longs to be liked is easily manipulated. He cannot refuse when he fears displeasure. He cannot stand firm when he dreads rejection. He bends, he yields, he compromises until nothing of his authority remains. His subordinates recognize it first. They see that his commands can be softened with flattery, that his discipline can be undone by charm. Soon they no longer tremble before him. They grow bold, confident that his fear of losing their affection will stay his hand from punishment. And when discipline fades, so does order, leaving him surrounded not by loyal followers, but by opportunists who smile to his face and betray him in silence. Worse still, his enemies do not need to strike him directly. They only need to whisper to turn the tide of affection against him. Since he relies on being liked, once the crowd turns cold, he is left defenseless, stripped of the very thing he thought made him strong. A man who needs to be liked is like a fortress with its gates wide open, welcoming during peace, but helpless in war. Strength, by contrast, belongs to the man who can stand alone. He does not beg for affection, nor fear its loss. He commands with the certainty that his authority rests not in being liked, but in being respected. His enemies hesitate, his allies obey, and his followers remain cautious, for they know he will not be swayed by the charm of approval. His strength is not a gift given by others. It is a force that others must recognize. Do not forget this: predators circle the weakest prey, and nothing reveals weakness more clearly than the desperate need to be liked. The man who hungers for affection invites betrayal. The man who demands respect commands loyalty. And it is always better to be feared for strength than to be pitied for weakness. Affection dies quickly, often as swiftly as it is born. It thrives only when it is convenient, when circumstances are light, and when no sacrifice is required. The moment difficulty arises, affection withers. Those who once spoke fondly of you will turn silent or even hostile, for their liking was never more than a shallow comfort. But respect endures. It is not dependent on mood or convenience. It is carved into memory by the weight of strength, by the firmness of character, by the certainty that your presence can not be ignored. The man who builds his power on being liked is already preparing for his downfall. He will discover that laughter does not defend him, applause does not protect him, and affection does not outlast adversity. For men love as long as it suits them, but they respect even when it pains them. Respect survives the turning of seasons, the rise and fall of fortune, the fading of charm. It endures when affection has long since rotted away. Consider how men speak of the dead. Few remember those who were merely liked. Their names vanish with the fading of memory. But those who commanded respect are remembered even by those who feared them. Respect creates a legacy, a weight that stretches beyond one's lifetime. The man who is liked may be forgotten once the warmth of his company is gone, but the man who is respected is spoken of long after, his name carried forward as a reminder of strength. This is why it is dangerous to chase the affection of others. It may fill the moment, but it leaves no trace behind. Respect, however, etches itself into the minds of men. It is what keeps them cautious even in your absence, what restrains their betrayal even when no one is watching. To be liked is to live briefly in the hearts of others. To be respected is to endure in their thoughts long after their feelings have changed. Affection is fleeting, but respect is lasting. And it is always better to be remembered for strength than forgotten for kindness.